Welcome to the App Advisory Show, your fortnightly dose of all things cloud accounting, apps, and app advisory.
Hey folks, thanks for tuning in to the App Advisory Summit. I'm delighted to be looking after Jackie and Dan today as they help us on our panel session around the new services for accountants with cloud accounting and app advisory. So Jackie and Dan both looking to build out some teams that can really help in this to the benefit of their client base and also to themselves as the firm. So we'll get straight into it and stop me talking, and we will have a chat with Jackie and Dan. So Jackie, do you want to introduce who you are and the firm you're working?
Yeah, I'm Jackie Senior. I'm a real-time accounting director at Garbutt and Elliott Accountants. So what that means is I look after the outsourcing function, but very closely aligned to that is obviously building out the app advisory service to link in closely with it. Great.
Cheers, Jackie. Dan?
Yeah, hi, I'm Daniel Coleman, and I am the lead on the MT Cloud project, which is a project based from Moore Thompson Accountants, and I am heavily involved with taking Moore Thompson to the next level with cloud and bringing apps in and utilising the cloud where possible with clients and internally.
Excellent. Right. So two people who are really interested in cloud accounting and the ecosystem and what more we can do for the SME world as a whole then.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Right. Okay. So basically we've got 3 or 4 questions we're going to run through. We've got 20-25 minutes. So you guys are going to share some of your insights and experience, and I'll duck in with a few where I can as well. Right. So let's get on to first question that we're going to be having. So this is probably a bit more of a personal question, but how has cloud accounting migration developed in your experience? So when you first got engaged in the likes of cloud accounting to where you are now, it'd be interesting to see how that has really progressed over time and developed. So Jackie, from your perspective, when did you get involved in cloud in terms of the systems that you got involved with, and what do you think's changed over that period of time?
As a firm, we've probably been doing this maybe about 5 years, but I maybe got involved sort of 2.5, 3 years ago now. And so when I first sort of got started with it, the process prior to that was very sporadic, shall we say. There wasn't a clearly defined process for what we were doing. We were converting people onto cloud. We didn't have a sort of a wrapper around it. So sometimes we were doing it for free because we thought it was for our benefit. We weren't really, and also just to prove that we knew what we were doing, and we just not really grasped the commerciality of it and how it can benefit the client. So things have rapidly changed since then.
So from that to where you've got to now, so you mentioned not the wrap around that and maybe the framework to deliver it and make the profit and a decent revenue stream out of it. Like where have you got to today with that now?
So we've got a clearly defined process in the way that we go about doing a conversion. So we can actually sell it to the client in terms of the various stages in the process. So from understanding their system, to explaining the benefits, to providing training, then checking in with them, providing them a health check at the end. So a clear time span that the migration takes. And that really has helped to be able to put a price on it. That was a basic one. And once we got comfortable with that, we've been able to move into more advanced. So rather than just a zero receipt bank, it's talking zero receipt bank plus full finance function integration. And then when you get to that stage, the fees are considerably more.
Okay, excellent. So Jackie, we've been building that for a period of time. Dan, you're new to this world for your firm, trying to build this out. So be interested to see like what your experience has been from when you first got involved in cloud to where you're looking to go to now.
Well, So I initially got into cloud 6-7 years ago. I trained at another firm, and one of my very first jobs with cloud was to migrate our internal bookkeeping Sage 50 onto Xero, and that really sticks in my head because it wasn't an enjoyable job back then. Fast forward into where we are today, I think we try to move things across where we see a benefit for us or the client, and we're moving away from this free function that seems to take some time, and moving into a platform where you let us do the migration. We do it really well. We give you a platform where you can start using your cloud from day one and it works as it should do. And a bit like what Jackie was saying, then you're starting to implement Unleashed and a few other bits and pieces, some reporting tools, and suddenly with a really good migration, you can offer so many more services just from having that early stage done right. That's the thing that I've taken most from migrating is do it once, do it correct, and don't, sometimes let a trainee do it if they're not quite capable, or even worse, let a client attempt it, or it's very much you get what you put in. If you do it properly, you'll never have to worry about it again. If you don't do it properly, hindsight, you'll be going back in a year's time correcting it all to make sure that the year-end accounts are correct. So that's probably my take from it. We do now package it, and it is part of our process. It's almost mandatory now. If you're moving from one software to another, it's kind of a mandatory process that you let us do the migration and not let the client do it where possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And have you guys been down the path? With a lot of firms who I speak to, and you'll be involved in the sessions that we see where they may be doing some of the migrations for free, or there's an element of that. Like, what's your view on free for this world of implementing it?
I mean, personally, I think accountancy is changing quite drastically, quite quickly. And I mean, personally, I see a world where we move away from hourly charge out rates and we look at more fixed pricing, and that really fits in with that. I think if you scope a client correctly, you know how big a job it is, and then you can price accordingly. And I would refrain from giving anything away for free unless I really had to, because it's just it's a really easy opportunity to show a client how good cloud can be, which is what I like about it.
Cool. Jackie, what about you? Have you been down the free route and then come out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's about showing the client the value in what you do, and the value, and being able to be happy that your conversion is a solid conversion, and it will result in, as you say, good quality data. It will result in reduced year-end fees. But what you've done is a technical process, and you can't give that away for free because it will just undervalue it for everybody if they think that anybody can do it, because they can't. As you know, Daniel quite rightly said, you don't just give it to the trainee because they've got nothing better to do. You've got to get the right people doing this and have a good review process to make sure it's right. I mean, we had problems initially where we were stung, and it was the managers that were getting then shoddy Xero that had been converted, or clients hadn't taken training, so they were getting a mess. So as you say, we've made the training element mandatory for our conversion process, because otherwise then the client managers won't recommend it to anybody else, because they think it's Xero that's wrong, not the client using it incorrectly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really fair point. It's I think also what we will find is there's a lot of people will have a stab at this on their own. So having those processes to pick people up to say, actually, we've had a look and we've reviewed, and actually there's a lot more we can do, or you haven't set it up properly. Doing that having that as a process, I think, is really important, because I do think in this client we'll certainly find people who will go to the Starling Bank, click, I'll go and get Xero, any other system that's out there. All of a sudden, I've got this set up, not know what a nominal code is, but I'm reconciling the bank by matching and creating everything else. And then whoever the accountant picks it up is like, what on earth is this? But I've got a fully reconciled bank account, and isn't that all I need? So I think that, like, a lot of firms will need to bear that in mind, that process of picking up those bag of nails cloud clients and showing the value quite quickly. You guys going to be catering for that and going forward?
Absolutely. I actually had a phone call this morning from one of our partners. He's just picked up a new client and he's asked for me to do 3 health checks on the 3 companies that this client has set up, because we're a good 3 months from their year end. So we've got a really good opportunity now to then propose a fee to correct, or tell the client what he needs to do to correct before we end up with that mess at the year end for the accounts team, which historically the accounts team have then just absorbed because we've quoted and not gone back and readdressed that.
Yeah. So if are you building out any digital health checks or anything like that for those sort of prospects who do themselves, Dan?
Yeah, we're both doing internally and externally, because obviously I've been with Moore Thompson for about 4 months now. Historically, they've got a batch of cloud clients that perhaps wasn't done correctly, but they are now correcting where possible. And one of our processes will be to internally health check some of our own work to make sure that we're happy with what we're doing and what we're producing. But also we're using things like Xavier where we can to optimize and to reduce time really where possible, because the software now can really do most of the work. Yeah.
Okay. And on that, in terms of those, we're sort of going to the next question. I'll bring it up shortly. But essentially, can you see more people? Well, let me reframe that. You mentioned there about correctly. So what we're perceiving is correctly on cloud. So that's not to say they're not sat there doing nothing on cloud, right? They're being used for a year end or a VAT return. So is that what you're classing as not proper cloud?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Don't you get in trouble with the rest of the firm?
The work that we do is fine. From a compliance perspective, it meets the requirements that it needs to meet. What I'm talking about is optimizing the work so that when you come to year end, there's less work to do because you're doing it on a regular basis. That's where we need to optimize our internal work.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're seeing lots, aren't we, across the UK? You'll be picking up prospects yourselves where they are on a cloud accounting system, but it's that 4 times a year for a VAT return, once a year for an annual accounts, and we're just saying that's not real. That's not what real-time cloud accounting software was ever designed for. It was much more of a regular contact and regular insight point, wasn't it? So yeah, that's a real opportunity for all firms to really pick up that baton. So when we talk about optimizing, which we'll go into the question next, we've already sort of answered, but that's fine. What we're saying there is we've just got an opportunity. We've got them onto the compliance routine. How can we start to do more with them in that space? So we'll come on to that, because you did mention Xavier as well, which I think is an interesting point to cover as well. So what are your plans with optimizing cloud accounting? Both clients and prospects already on cloud. So just mentioning on Xavier, are you guys both looking to use Xavier? And one of you can start the conversation and we'll pick up from there.
Yeah, so we've developed specific flows within Xavier to be able to do a health check for a prospect or a health check for the year-end account side of things. So that's about sort of data being accurate and correct for the next stage of whatever it's needed for. But I think that's only half of the point of optimization. So that's optimizing data quality, but then there's optimizing zero usage, and we're trying to do both at once. In reality, so it's a good opportunity to look at client data prior as part of planning for the year-end accounts prep. So then we're forewarning the accounts compliance team if there's any issues that they need to know about. But at that point, we can also be delving into it from, right, okay, so they might have a receipt bank attached, they might have a bank feed, and that might be it, but there could be so much more they could do. And that's the point where we again can feed that into the client manager, so we can then start to have that conversation almost as part of accounts close down when they're doing it, recommendations for moving forward.
Yeah, okay, so looking at building it into your own current process and timelines of interacting with the client, and then letting the client know there's something more that could be done in and around that. Daniel, what about you at Morty? You mentioned Xavier originally.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more with what Jackie said. I really think that cloud now gives us the opportunity to offer more services, more advisory work, and whether that be a receipt bank or a bank feed. But also, I've got clients where we're looking at inventory systems, but also looking at reporting, and the opportunities now with funding and bits and pieces that can all link into the cloud quite nicely. You're having that regular contact with a client, it's so much easier to be able to offer those services, because you understand what the client's doing on a regular basis. When you don't talk to them for 3 months, or even a year, it's really hard to guess where the client is and what they'll need. So that's what really stands out to me in terms of optimizing the cloud, is having that conversation on a regular basis and building that relationship. And what I often find with clients is, if you have that one-to-one relationship, firstly, they'll never leave you because the trust is built, and they're really happy with the service. But also often you find those are our best fees, because you're working with them on a regular basis and you're creating more revenue by offering more services, which the client sees the benefit of, which then means the trust is built, which means they stay with you. And it's a really nice circle of trust to get into where possible.
Brilliant. Well, it's good to hear. But yeah, I think both of you touched on it there, that tools like Xavier, where the data, the accounting data is like really useful. I think if you can marry that with some experience of the tool and how they use it and what more you can do, that's a really great, because you're plugging them into the pains they've got, which means they'll value if you've got some solutions which will help. So yeah, I think that's cloud accounting data is really a real pivotal part. But as a business owner, if my cloud accounting data is not, showing on Xavier at 90%, I'm probably not losing a lot of sleep. But if there's something I can't see in my business, I probably would be losing sleep over that. So it's really important we marry both of those up. They're both equally as important as we go forward. Right, okay. Next question. Let's get this. So there'll be people on this, and I've had this asked of me actually on panel sessions where I've been on there. Is there really a chance to make a revenue stream from this? I think some people will be watching this saying, this is a bit far-fetched, and this wasn't what accountants were ever meant to be doing, and I didn't get trained on that, or I've not seen the evidence, or most of what I hear is my clients won't pay for it, actually, quite a lot of the time. I'm intrigued, guys, to see, what's your experience been of creating a revenue stream, and you both touched on looking to build business units and functions out of this. Like Jackie, what's your view? Is there a revenue stream out of this?
Absolutely. I mean, we're literally our accounting year end for the firm in a couple of days. And what I've been spending my time doing is I've been trying to work out how much of the fee is to do with the RTA service line, so the real-time accounting service line. So be that providing the outsourcing service, which only comes by being on cloud, whether it comes from the management information and the cash flow forecasting service, and also then all the fees for actually migrating people, training people, using App Advisory. So that's been really interesting to see how that's looking just on my own portfolio at the moment, and all the other partners are having to do that. So we've then got a starting point to be able to grow and push that. So we've been able to prove it. The managing partner is 100% behind us, that can clearly see that we're winning work off the back of this now. So much so that I'm looking for a new cloud solutions architect to be able to come in and do that optimization of existing clients piece, because my existing one is flat out doing migrations and conversions of new clients or existing clients. So yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. From scoping, which I have to say I was a little bit nervous about charging for at the start, but I feel much more comfortable with that now. And we no longer call it scoping, it's design, system design. So it's a design, then an implementation fee. So just moving away from that, even to charge a fee and then say, okay, but you'll get 50% of that knocked off your implementation fee, just to save those amount of time where you just get your time wasted and spend a lot of time and then they go and implement it themselves. you're covering yourself then. So yeah, absolutely. That's where I'm going to be judged. So I really hope there is a fee stream for this, else I haven't got a job.
Well, to be fair, I know the accounting profession works on business cases, and business cases none of us have evidence. So if you're looking for a new architect, then it's likely to show there's been some return on the current setup. So that's great to see. What about you, Daniel? What's your experience?
Yeah, I mean, same. I was just about to say, I hope there is, because I've made a career out of it so far. So I think the important things that I would highlight is tracking some of your wins, because I think sometimes, you know, it doesn't seem like massive amounts, but £1,500 here and £3,000 there and £10,000 here, they all add up. And I think it's been easier with Moore Thompson because it's a new role, and because you feel like you're proving your worth to a certain degree. I do keep track of it, and I can guarantee you now that I've made more than I've cost them over the last 4 months. But you've really got to have the buy-in from the staff. You've really got to have that mentality. I always feel cloud people, as I would call them, are slightly different to your standard accountant. They're often a bit more extrovert than introvert. They're often the one that's wearing the strange coloured checkered suit in the background. And I think that's where it's important, is making sure you have the right staff in the right areas, and those people in front of clients and talking to them. And the revenue will just filter through from that. And to start off with, it won't feel like a lot, but suddenly, I mean, my month is booked up, but I'm fully booked for a month, and that's all chargeable work. We're just talking about there's a new person starting in 3 weeks' time, and 2 weeks of her first month is already booked up because I've been booking it up for her. So there's definitely revenue there to be made. It's just going out and getting the work and proving your worth, really.
Yeah, I think as well, both of your firms you've positioned yourself and messaged yourself that you do this stuff, right? That's the other thing, is that, you know, it's not just a case, it's just a landing on your door and all of a sudden it's like, you know, you've talked about your cloud offering, you've talked about the services that you can do, and you're still progressing those services but still talking about them. So yeah, I think that's the other thing. It's also, when you start doing this, you're positioning yourself as people who do this, which then attracts some opportunity anyway. It's not just going to happen if you're all of a sudden, you know, oh, we've passed some certification but we don't tell anyone we've done anything. Like, nothing's going to arrive on your doorstep with that. Okay, well, that was useful, guys. So yes, I think we can agree that there is a revenue stream to be made out of this. So yeah, final question: what's your aspirations for building a resource team for this type of function? And it's interesting because you're sort of, Jackie, a couple of years into sort of doing this, and Daniel sort of 4 or 5 months into doing this, but obviously got somebody, as you mentioned, just is going to be starting the next 3-4 weeks. So Jackie, just tell us a bit about where you're at with your firm currently, and then what your next hire or two looks like, and then Daniel, same with you, really.
So within the cloud solutions element of what we do, so I've got one cloud solutions architect at the moment, who's our fantastic technical guy, who really loves the apps and finding the solutions, understanding client problems. I've then got a senior manager in one of our other offices who has worked with cloud and worked with Xero for a long time, but he's really great at speaking to clients and explaining what they can get out of it if they move onto cloud. So he's great on the BD side for the department. Yeah. And then I'm sort of overarching and trying to put the strategy together and trying to push it forward. And I've been with our firm a long time, so I understand our clients and what our client service needs to be. So it still needs to fit that tone, rather than being a completely new way of working. We still need to make sure we're delivering it in the way that's suitable for the entire firm. So that's where we've been, and we've drawn upon support from other members. So we've got the rest of the real-time accounting team and more the Xero users and the management accountants. And we've drawn upon those people to help with conversions. Yeah, okay. But what I want to do is really build out the solutions department. So yeah, we're looking for another architect to say, look at the internal client offering. I also want to look at somebody more IT based, to be able to then start to build out some of those integration solutions. So we don't need to necessarily move out to third parties. And then I would like a number of real-time accounting engineers sitting beneath the architects, which will then basically be our AATs that come through. They'll maybe do 1 year of bookkeeping, understand zero, and transition into the department. So they've got that understanding. So, and then I've been looking at how that flows through. So once you get a number of them, you'll then need a manager, and you can't just have, I can't look after all those people on my own. It all needs to be tiered. So yeah, really just making it into its own unique department rather than just being part of the overall real-time accounting team. The actual solutions team would be standalone in its own right.
Excellent. Sounds really good. I think as well, it's interesting, probably people listening to this going, architects and engineers in an accounting firm is probably not what you're expecting. But yeah, it's really interesting to see. And like you say, you've had some success with the team that you've built already. So just trying to extrapolate that and looking at the skills and the gaps that you've got in order to do that. So that's really interesting. What about you, Daniel? What have you got? Go on, sorry, Jackie.
Oh, sorry. It was just really important to move away from those traditional titles so that people could see it's a completely different skill set. So you've not necessarily got qualified accountants in that role, but they can command a qualified accountant salary because they're experienced and skilled in a different way. So it was really important to have that differentiation and distinction.
Makes sense. Perfect. Great. Daniel, what about you? What's your aspirations for your team?
Well, very similar actually than what Jackie was just saying. I think it's always interesting when you talk to cloud people because we are on the same wavelength. It's so interesting. So for me, I've got the new starter coming in, cloud coordinator, similar concept, get away from those stereotype, jargony titles and start creating some new ones. The key for us really is to utilize cloud where possible, and I envisage a similar setup as what Jackie was saying. I would like to move a lot of our bookkeeping, internal bookkeeping, into one department, have a team that can do it really, really well. I think sometimes a good bookkeeper is lost to some firms. They don't see the value in a good bookkeeper. Now, a good bookkeeper to me, especially with cloud, can not only do that and bookkeeping, but also can do training, they can do support, they can do queries. And I think that's where we are looking to go as a firm. And then on from that, trainees coming in, doing their year with MT Cloud, learning how to use the software really, really well. And then if they want to carry on and go up and be an accountant, then they move upstairs and they go from that point. That really is the key. I think cloud will be a platform for most new starters as they come through nowadays.
Yeah, it's going to underpin a lot, isn't it? I think the cloud.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, that's pretty interesting actually, because I hadn't discussed it with both of you beforehand, so I was intrigued to see where you're going. But it just shows that I think there's two parts there. It is that one, that it's thinking about the future. So you're both thinking about, like, how do we engage more people? And I wonder as well, you know, we're going to see firms where you can come in and you can go, you start with an understanding of everything in basics, and then you could go down an engineer and architect route with systems, or you could go down a accounting and tax and, you know, with a basis of knowing what software could underpin whatever advice or client facing services you're going to deliver as part of that accounting firm going forward. So it's mega interesting. Well, guys, that really leaves us right at the very end of the session. We've got to keep them short and sharp. Really appreciate your time. I think that was great insights. I think there'll be some firms who are on there maybe haven't heard this type of talk before, but there'll be some firms who have been maybe thinking about it but not sure how to articulate it across. So thanks a lot for your time, guys, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks,
Thank
Matt.
you.